In this video, I'm going to show you how to create an outline for your career research project. So an outline is the last stage in planning for that final paper. And really what you are doing is kind of generating an idea of what you want to write for each one of your 5 paragraphs. So we start with the introductory paragraph, we have our 3 body paragraphs, and then the conclusion. So let's first talk about how we can plan out that introductory paragraph. There should be 4 parts to an introductory paragraph. A hook, which grabs the reader's attention, something that grabs the reader's attention. A transitional statement, which connects the hook with the topic of the paper. A very brief overview of the topic. And then you always end an introductory paragraph with the thesis statement. So let's dive in and see what this might look like with my example. So I'm researching librarians, becoming a librarian. So let's talk first about a hook. So a couple things, a couple strategies that you can use for making a good hook. And again, this is just a sentence that grabs the reader's attention. Some things you can do is try to find an intriguing example, a provocative or thought-provoking quote, puzzling scenario or question, maybe pose a question to the reader, or an interesting anecdote. So an anecdote is like a short story. And what I want to do here as I'm making this outline, and especially planning out this hook, is just get some ideas down. Just some different things that maybe I could possibly use. And then when it comes time to actually write the paper, I'm going to choose one of those ideas. So maybe I might generate like 3 ideas, 3 things that I could potentially use for a hook. But in the end, when we actually write the paper, I'm going to discard 2 of them and then stick with one. And the other thing to keep in mind too is that I don't need to be writing out my sentences right now. I don't need to be writing incomplete sentences. I can be doing just brief notes, ideas. Again, this is just getting ideas down on paper or on the screen or whatever. So let's see how I can make this hook if I'm researching librarians. So you may have to look things up. Go back on Google. So what I did is first, I looked up, thinking maybe there's a good quote about librarians out there that I could potentially use for a hook. So I did a Google search for quotes about librarians, and I found several good ones, but one in particular, which is by the author Neil Gaiman. He said, "Google can bring you back 100,000 answers. A librarian can bring you back the right one." I thought that was a pretty cool quote. So I want to just make a note of that. Maybe I can use that in my paper. So I'm going to copy this link, go back to that numbers document, and then I'm just going to make a note. We'll just, say it was Neil Gaiman quote. And in case I want to use it and kind of refer back to that quote, I'm just going to put in the URL in case I did want to use that. All right, now I want to go back to Google. That's maybe one thing. I want to maybe generate at least 2 or 3 things, just so I can have some choices. So, I got to thinking, one thing I can use for a hook is like an intriguing example. So I did a search, like, are there libraries out there that are doing some like innovative things, some things that like when you think of a library, you don't think of them actually doing this. And when I started looking to see what libraries are doing out there, I came across this a lot, actually. So a lot of libraries are setting up what they call a library of things. And I thought this was a really cool idea. So when we think of libraries, we think that they lend books to people. But what a lot of libraries are doing is they're actually gathering different items like athletic equipment, musical instruments, cameras, cooking equipment. Big thing is power tools, actually. And think about it, like if you have a house, a lot of times you have to do projects where you might need a special tool, and you might only need that tool once. And it's kind of a bummer to have to go and buy this tool that you're only going to use once and then never use again. So, or you might have people that just can't afford tools but need to get work done around their house. So a lot of libraries have started to carry equipment like this that patrons can go in and check out and not have to spend the money on and kind of save their money, which is a kind of a cool idea. So I like this. I think that this is kind of an intriguing example, and something I could potentially use in a hook. So again, I'm going to copy the URL, and I'm going to make a note called like the Library of Things example. And again, just so I can see where that is, I'm going to paste the URL in case I want to use that in my hook. So again, as I mentioned, I wanted like at least 3 things that I could potentially use as a hook. So I have a quote, I have this example. We're kind of living in a tough time. And, I got to think, are there libraries and librarians out there right now that are going above and beyond to help their patrons during this time of pandemic and lockdowns and COVID and everything else? So, I did a search, like librarians during COVID was basically my Google search. And I found this news story from The Atlantic. And it was about this library in Colorado that they're basically doing some really great outreach and helping out their community, especially the young people in their community. They're providing meals, counseling services, resources, and all kinds of different things for their community, all without having to step foot indoors. They're doing this all kind of curbside. So I think I thought that this was kind of a touching and I don't know, really cool story that's out there. So again, I'm going to copy the URL and just make note of it, just as a potential thing that I could use for my hook. So I'll just make a note. We'll just say librarians during COVID. And I can paste that there. Now, when it's actually time for me to write my paper, I'm going to be disregarding 2 of these, and and just going with one that I write in my first sentence. So, I might just be using the quote. So when I write that sentence, I might just be saying, Neil Gaiman said, Google can bring you back 100,000 answers, while librarians bring you back the right one. And that might be my hook sentence. Okay. But the point is, right now, I just want to generate a few ideas and just have them ready to go. After we plan our hook, we want to plan our transitional statement. So again, all this is doing is just connecting our hook to our main topic. And really the key thing that I want to say here is that librarians help, right? Librarians help their communities. So I'm just going to make a quick note of that. Librarians help their communities. And when I actually write my paper, I'm just going to turn that into a sentence that's going to be my transitional sentence. All right, brief topic overview. Again, we want to be brief. We want to be general here because in the paper, you're going to get into like the nitty-gritty details or I'll get into the nitty-gritty details of what a librarian does, what the work environment is, the different places where you'll find librarians, things like that. So really, I just want like a general statement here. Make a note like librarians help patrons find resources. Okay, whether that resource be, it could be a book, it could be a tool, it could be services like counseling services, it could be a meal. Librarians help patrons, connect patrons with resources. And that's kind of going to be my overview of what a librarian does. I could also mention maybe, the different types of librarians that are out there. Different types. And, I could maybe quickly mention, you're going to find them in schools, public libraries. There's going to be medical librarians. You're going to find them in hospitals. There's going to be law librarians, college. And just, maybe I just want to quickly mention like all the different librarians that are out there. You'll find them in businesses too. Okay, and maybe government agencies as well. Okay, but again, a quick statement, what in general, what does a librarian do, and maybe what are the different types that are out there. All right. Then finally, as I mentioned before, the last sentence in an introductory paragraph is the thesis statement. So for that, I can just go to my thesis tab and just copy my thesis statement. And just like that. So what I did, again, didn't really write any complete sentences here. Just did some brief notes, got some ideas down on paper of maybe what I want my introductory paragraph to look like.